All right, so with our handsome Mr. Sterling, you ready, sir? We'll do a little find it. So he was just doing some really nice work with his place behavior and the beginning stages of some of those gorgeous state exercises. And then, of course, working through some distractions. But what I wanted to try to work on a little bit was a little bit more with some dog-centric play. So I know that a lot of times, and as I'm blabbing, I'm going to just do a couple find it's to keep him entertained. Ready? Find it. So a lot of dog behavioral problems from our perspective is the dog doing dog things but in an inappropriate way or too much. And a lot of these dog behaviors are very natural for your dog as an animal, but the problem is sometimes we don't always have the right outlets for them. So I'm not saying that, again, anybody's being a dog, bad dog owner. There can be moments where I too have days where the weather's awful. It's super cold. I'm just feeling under the weather. I just maybe mentally don't feel like doing something. Or I'm like, very occupied with another thing. So this doesn't mean that I don't want to enrich my dogs. So this is going to be where sometimes rotation through different venues can be helpful. So I know for a lot of my students, nose work can be another great venue. So canine nose work. So dog sports have a really great outlet. So some students might even really love doing rally or agility. Barn hunt is another fun one. But again, if for right now the weather is cruddy, it's cold, it's dark, I understand, like I too want to become a hermit and not deal with the wilderness. But there's going to be moments where the dog's having a harder time with things is sometimes because their needs haven't been met. So I'm not saying this is what we're doing, but sometimes for some dogs, like with one of my other boys, I noticed that when he doesn't get to do certain things like skills or thinking or moving his body, just like us, like during COVID, when we were kind of all stuck inside our homes and couldn't do anything, we were starting to get a little stir crazy and our mental health wasn't as great. So there's going to be moments where most dogs sadly do spend almost 23, 22 hours in a day inside a home. So there's going to be a lot of moments where that leads to what we would consider behavioral problems. This is not saying that because of only what we do with our dogs that that's creating behavior solely. Remember that it's just like with us, nurture and nature. So there's also genetics that play a role. There's also maternal, like what happened when the puppies were in utero plus out, their experiences before you happen to get them, adopt them, purchase them, whatever. So there's a lot of factors that go into future behavior. Also what they've been exposed to from 0 to 12 weeks of age, 16 weeks of age is also going to be sort of a predictable sort of outlay of what you might be dealing with later. So for some puppies, if they're already showing distress or signs of fear or anxiety under the age of 12 weeks, you're more than likely going to have something you need to really work on so you can help that puppy flourish and feel more comfortable into their teenage years as well and into adulthood. So I know we dived into slightly with, potential for supplements, maybe medication. This does not mean that I'm saying that every single dog out there should be on something. I think a lot of times giving more agency to dogs, giving them choices. This doesn't mean to like let them decide if they want to run into the road or not. That's not what I mean. But if, let's say, you could pick on a walk which direction your dog chooses, that sometimes brings a lot more fulfillment to your dog than, for example, you always choosing the lay of the land or what you're rocking. So whenever it's safe to do so, allowing your puppy to have confidence and abilities to choose or decide this is too much or just right can be really helpful for boosting comfort and confidence, but also good relationships with us as well and trust. So, but back to our handsome guy, I want to do a little bit, like I know you guys know all about the Flirt Pole. So I know for a lot of puppies, Flirt Pole play can be a great outlet. We just want to make sure that we're doing things safely. So what I mean by that is if your puppy doesn't quite know how to do a drop it or out, that's still something to work on. If this is too exciting, it could be one of those things where you're fueling the fires too big and it's hard to let them simmer. For some puppies, as the excitement goes up, their abilities kind of go out the window. So, but this can be a good way to build that on-off switch, rev the engine, put the brakes on and go from there. So I love the fact that as I'm blabbing, he's just staring into my soul. He's like, maybe you'll make it move. So we're going to go, are you ready? And then go get it. And now my toy is alive. So the benefit of, let's say, a flirt pole is now your puppy could run and chase and do things that bring great joy to most dogs. Because a lot of times catching and grabbing and biting and all of these doggy skills are what your babe is looking to do, but sometimes they don't have the appropriate outlet. This does not mean that for my healer, for example, that I have a lovely herd of cattle for him to move, but it does mean that I want to make sure that I'm giving him both mental and physical outlets that might be a little bit breed specific at times or seem like a good way to have him expend some good mental and physical energy. Nice job. So right here, I'm feeding Mr. Handsome for letting go, even though the toy is right here. I want him to think there's a lot of great value in taking pauses through excitement, because if your puppy can't practice certain skills while playing, how is he going to practice when things get challenging, exciting, or really overwhelming? This is really pretty sit. So I'm going to go ahead and feed him for that. Gorgeous. So I'm going to go, you ready? Once he's done chewing, and we'll say, go get it. He's like, hold up, my toesies. There we go. Ready? He was stepping right on it. With the flirt pole, there are some safety precautions. He's like, watch these dance moves. So number one, recommend traction, really important. So if you're doing this like on hardwood, I don't recommend it. Even for fetching and things like that, be careful there. Nice job, ready, go get it. So if, for example, you're outside, I know right now we have a slew of snow and now it's kind of icy and squishy and sort of melting. So, but then sometimes that means the traction could be slick. So you'd want to use caution if your puppy doesn't have the greatest footing, because that means they could hurt themselves in the process of running and jumping. So, also when it comes to playing with a flirt pole, you want to keep the toy low to the floor or on the ground, especially in the beginning. If your puppy gets really good at it, ready, go get it, then like with one of my boys, I'm able to lift it up off the ground and he follows it through the air and he sometimes even leaps and meets me halfway and he grabs it. So, but if your babe is not that cozy quite yet, or they don't know how to land, or they're still younger, I highly recommend, nice catch, is to keep it low so your puppy doesn't jump and follow it through the air and then drop and land funny. So if your puppy starts tugging on this, remember it's not a tuggy toy. So if he starts tugging, you would lower the lead and just sort of step on it. So that way if you were to let go, it doesn't ricochet you. Because this one is a bungee lead and it does have a handle. And you would want to use the handle because if, let's say, the puppy were to pull or they grab the critter mid-run and they pull, you don't want to by accident let go of the pole and bonk your puppy. Ready? So we'll do a little bit more. Go get that bad boy. So, but as your puppy starts to really get really comfortable with this game, ready, go get it, you can start to include a little bit longer reps. He's like, woohoo. If, let's say, he is expending too much energy and you're worried about him maybe getting sore or he's just being a wild man with it, I would do soft swooshing motions with pauses to assess how tired or how well he's doing. He's like, that was exhausting. What a good job. Smart boy. So, but if he's really good about the let go, which is splendid, some of them get a little too jazzed and they have a hard time letting go. That's the puppy that I would probably practice with like a softer start and practice with take it and drop it's or out and give with toys they're allowed to have. Like, for example, longer tuggies or a toy on a rope. So you can be part of the process, but not have to be so low to where the bitey end is. So ready? You'll go get it? He's like, maybe. He's like, I'm already winded though. Go get it. He's like, maybe I'd rather just get food. What do you think? Are you all done? You want to go get it? Oh, he says, I'm pooped out already. What do you think? What if you grab it? There we go. So you can also practice just having him grab it. You'll see that sometimes as he gets tired, when he's doing a lot of panting, it's hard for him to play because he has to try to expend that heat and kind of catch his breath. He's also now figured out there's the water dish. So if your puppy tends to have to take a break, perfectly fine. I wouldn't make this into like a marathon type sport because it is very tiring for them mentally and physically. So when you are playing with like a flirt pole, or even if you're playing fetch, I'd make sure your fetch is still within their comfort range. So what I mean by that is if, let's say, your puppy is doing fetch and they're really going hard at it, they may hurt themselves in the process of turning and pivoting and stopping and grabbing. So be careful that your fetch is not too high intensity wise, especially if the puppy is young and an adolescent and still developing. but also because some babes are so driven by the toy, the way they move is not natural unless the toy is out, and then they're even more exuberant. So they could be more likely to injure themselves because of that higher sense of excitement or arousal. Nice job, sir. So after working a little bit with that play, maybe we'll go into working a little bit, ready, with some more loose leash walking. Because sometimes what can be helpful is if your puppy tends to have a hard time with going slower, you may find do a warm up with some play or some engagement or some searching of toys, even in the snow. And that's another way to do low impact kind of practice. So in the snow, I sometimes actually will take some of my dog's food or some training treats they like, toss them in a pile of like the snow out in my yard, and then have them go forage for them. You can also hide toys and have your dog go search for them. And that you can also do sometimes later in, like, let's say your grass, if you're not dealing with tons of bunny poop, that could be another whole can of worms there. But no pun intended there. But you may find that maybe working some nose work in the sense of searching for favorite toys, chews, or snacks in certain venues could be another great option. He's doing a really nice job. What a smart boy. So, but this loose leash walking is really pretty. So, and I know at times I'm practicing, but not with gear on. And the reason I tend to do this often is I think we as people become very reliant on like a piece of gear. And the problem there is if that's the only reason the puppy is doing something or performing something, then it's not because they know it. It's either because the gear is creating that response, or they're in worry that the gear is going to do something, and therefore they're trying to avoid that potential stimulus or negative association. So with our handsome guy, if he does start to learn what loose leash walking is, it's like a skill. It's not the gear that made it happen. And later your food would get phased out to being more intermittent. And then here and there, and you could do other types of reinforcement, like for example, the environment, going and sniffing, going and romping in the bushes, whatever it might be, playing with a friend, and then come back and work a few more skills. Sterling, come. Nice. What a smart boy. So, but maybe we'll do another couple little find its with a couple little recalls, and we'll call it a day for the handsome man. Ready? Find it. He's doing a really nice job. Sterling, come. Yes, what a good boy. Ready? Find it. But all the boys are doing a real nice job. Sterling. Oh, he found it. Just kidding. It was a different one from earlier. Come. Yeah. Oh, he says there's the one he lost too. Good job. So again, I don't mind if he pauses because he's picking up a little morsel he left behind. He's not ignoring me. He just says, hold on, woman. I found my other lost snack. But remember, we want to try to make sure that even if we sometimes get frustrated, that we're not then getting grumpy or agitated with them, because it's not going to create the learning you think you are teaching. So remember that when we get upset or overwhelmed or agitated, your puppy's not learning what not to do. They're just learning at times that when we're nearby, things are safe or unsafe. So just try to remember that if you're having a moment and your puppy's really challenging for a second, or they're having a hard time too, is try to think, okay, well, what could I do instead? Or what can we do to set up our puppies for greater success? And at times, if you have to take a break, give them a little rest. Maybe they go and enjoy a chew toy while they're in the little zone, and you can take a little moment. Because just like with little humans, you're going to have moments where, again, we get overwhelmed, and therefore then our skills kind of are not as good as they would have been had we felt more comfortable too. So, but when in doubt, if your babe is not doing well, always gauge the environment, because it does tend to drive behavior. Gauge, does my puppy really know what I'm asking? And have we generalized it to other adventures or other novel places with different varieties of distractions and difficulty? But then also, is your puppy's comfort range there or not there? Because if they're not feeling safe, their skill set will also be out the window. Nice job, sir. What is it, my lovey? I don't know. She's asking. Okay. So, but with Mr. S, really nice job for him today. We'll probably give him a little breather. Sterling, come. But the gentlemen are doing a really good job. So I'm very impressed with just week number 2. So we'll do another little find it for Mr. Handsome, and we'll call it a day for Mr. Sterling.